I'm a pretty cultured person with extremely refined taste, if it was not obvious. And this is no exception when it comes to my taste in movies. If you look at my Letterboxd, I have 3 movies: Paddington 2, Borat's subsequent movie film, and After We Collided. Now, what do these 3 have in common, you might ask? Well, not only are they all sequels, they are all cinematic masterpieces. Or are they? If you've never heard of After, you are one lucky son of a bitch. After, and all of the other books in the franchise that start with After so you don't get confused or get really confused, like After We Collided, After We Fell, After Ever Happy, After Our Happiness Ended because that didn't last long, After We Went to Couples Therapy, and After We Got Divorced. Oh, and to switch things up, there's also Before, as in before this shit show got started. The After series was originally published on Wattpad, however you decide to say it, by Anna Todd, or Imaginator 1D, in 2014. You heard me right, it wasn't just one book that was published in 2014. It was all of them. If that is any indicator to you, the quality of the series. And also, if you couldn't tell by her username, this was a set of One Direction fanfiction, specifically focused on Harry Styles. In this series, Tessa Y.N. Young is starting her first year of college, and she meets President Bad Boy Harry Styles, and lots of shenanigans ensue. Shenanigans that include, like regular college things like skipping class, going to parties, physical assault, drug abuse, emotional manipulation, and sex. Lots and lots of sex. If you have heard of After, and you already knew all this information, I am so terribly sorry for you. But why am I talking about this now? Well, about a week ago, the After We Collided movie dropped. How could you not have known? It's got an all-star cast, including Hannah Baker's sister, 11-year-old Tom Riddle, and Dylan Sprouse, awooga. So naturally, I watched the movie the day it came out. It came out on Friday and I watched it at midnight on Thursday because I'm a real fan. And as a real fan, I have a lot of thoughts. Here's also a little bit of backstory because I feel like I need to justify why I am actually watching this movie as an almost 20-year-old who does not even like One Direction or doesn't. I never was into One Direction when it was a thing. Just a little backstory, little exposition, if you will. I actually don't exactly remember how it started, but pretty much my roommates and I had this really big joke about reading After the fanfiction together as a book club, and then we got way too into it and took the joke way too seriously. And now I've ended up reading all of the After fanfiction and seeing the movie, and reading most of After We Collided and seeing the movie. It's like watching pimple popping videos where it's disgusting and feels kind of immoral, but you just can't stop watching it. With that disgusting simile out of the way, let's just get right into what I think. Let me start with this. There's a reason that this movie was picked up by Wattpad, whatever studios. Do you know why you create your own movie studio? It's because other movie studios don't want to pick up your absolute dog shit storylines. And this is not to shit on the entirety of fanfiction. I love fanfiction. I read fanfiction. And there's definitely good fanfiction and good fanfiction authors out there. Most of which I say would not be on Wattpad. I'm more of an archive of our own person. I think most cultured people are. But After is just an exceptionally bad fanfiction that got an exceptionally large amount of attention. I want to do my best to focus on the After We Collided film rather than the fanfiction or the publication by whoever published it. Why would you publish it? That's another no for another day. But I have to note that there's a lot of discrepancies between each version of the story, and these discrepancies are quite large. I don't even know if you could technically call them discrepancies because of how big they are. I have yet to read the actual published physical versions of the novels because I haven't reached that level of self-hatred quite yet. But we're getting there. And I think I actually would like to film a video on all of the plot differences between the different stages, the fanfiction book and movie, because it's crazy, and also I just want to talk about how badly it's written. So if that's something that you would be interested in seeing in the future, let me know in the comments or something like that. Anyways, the plot is just bad. I feel so bad for whoever was forced to make this movie and had to take this job. If they voluntarily took this job, that's even worse, but I'm just going to imagine that they were forced to make this. But Anna Todd stuffed so many unnecessary subplots and unnecessary main plots, like the entire story, into these books. They're like 100 chapters each, and the chapters aren't necessarily long, but 100 chapters, and the actual books are like, one of them is like 700 pages long. It is not a quantity over quality game here. Additionally, all of the plot is just extremely unrealistic. This book is about college students, and Anna Todd did not go to college, which is completely fine, but it's not fine when you write a book about college students and clearly don't do any research into what college is actually like. Obviously, my college experience cannot speak to everyone's, and obviously a college experience during coronavirus, which is a completely different thing, cannot speak to how it would have been normally. But in this book, the students party every single day, which is not necessarily completely unrealistic. But there is little to no mention of the academic consequences that this would have, which is a very real thing. Then Tessa this is probably the part that makes me the most mad. Tessa got a paid internship in her first semester of school, like a well-paid internship that gives her a lot of hours at a well-known company. And she got this internship because she was fucking the son of the chancellor of the university. And the chancellor went out of his way to just readjust her class schedule and be like, oh, it's okay that you miss class because you can go to work or whatever. Tessa already practically has a full-time job from how Anna Todd described it, maybe because she never did an internship. And I am not going to be employed till I am 30. What is the difference between me and Tessa? A lot. So much. But academically, we're both English majors. I am living the reality of what it is to be an English major. She is not. Not at all. Another very unrealistic plot point is that everyone thinks Tessa's super hot, and I don't mean to say Tessa's ugly. She's not. But even the prettiest person in the planet would not have the attention of everyone on her all of the time and have everyone want to fuck her. And let me make this point to you. Look at this photo. Look at this photo. Look at these photos. I don't care how honking your Toblerones are. I don't care how pretty your face is. I don't care how good of a personality you have. If you dress like a 14-year-old conservative Christian girl all of the time, especially as a college student, less than 5% of the population is going to fuck you. And I am very much over-exaggerating on that number, I think. And somehow in this movie, all of the guys that circle and revolve around Tessa just want to have sex with her. Maybe because they're taking advantage of her naivety, which is a whole other thing. But even then, it's this is a very, very unrealistic number of people who are extremely attracted to her and fighting for her. This is just the very, very prevalent "I'm so beautiful and the entire world revolves around me" mindset that is in a lot of this genre, this type of fan fiction. And it's so stupid because the world does not revolve around you. The world does not revolve around anything. The sun and the universe revolve around the world. Come on. That's all I can get into for the plot for now, because there's so much. But now that I've very briefly talked about the plot, I need to move on to the plot. After We Collided and that whole franchise has been colloquially dubbed the 50 Shades of Grey for teens, which is a sentence that should not exist. The very existence of this sentence is immoral and should be illegal, but here we are. This is a movie and a book and an everything made for horny teenage virgins, which is exactly why I watched it. But the movie is pretty much porn. I watched it with my roommates, and I think I would have been a lot more comfortable watching porn. And not even softcore porn. I'm talking about gonzo porn. Don't look up what gonzo porn is, and don't ask me why I know what it is. Also, my roommates and I were looking at porn awards right before this. Also, do not ask me any questions about that. And let me just say, looking at those, I would much rather watch the Hornies Award winner, 40-year-old mother in The Temptation of Sensation, starring fucking Stormy Scumby and Courtney Connecticut, than have to watch any of the sex scenes in After We Collided ever again. I don't think it's bad to have sex scenes in movies, but I think it's bad to have bad sex scenes in movies. 6 of them that are practically back to back. The worst of these sex scenes was all of them, but the particularly worst one was the belly button scene. So Tessa and Hardin were just like laying in bed together or whatever, and it was after they were fucking angry at each other for the like 400th time in the movie. And they were like, we're not gonna do anything. We can just lay in bed together, right? Wrong. Harry just all of a sudden starts caressing Tessa's belly button. Now, you might not see a problem with this if you're a disgusting human being, but the belly button is definitely something that I think objectively should not be put in the sexual spotlight at any time. And Hardin definitely has a belly button fetish. Like in the first movie, in one of the sex scenes there, he literally suctioned onto Tessa's belly button. He was like sucking Tessa's belly button. It was like he was trying to become the human umbilical cord. And now in this movie, he's back at it again. He's trying to dip his fingers into this orifice that cannot physically have fingers dipped into it and is not worthy of having fingers dipped into it. And this scene went on for years. I was sitting in physical agony having to get through this scene. And Tessa was enjoying it, like, way too much. Like, do you know that your clit is not in the middle of your stomach? Does Hardin know that? There is going to be a whole generation of people who watch this movie at a formative age and think that the clit is in the belly button. This is tragic. Tragic. Not only will these kids not know where the clit is, I promise you that this is going to be the last time I say clit. I promise you that that will be the last time that I say it. Even more kids are going to grow up not knowing what consensual sex and a healthy relationship is. I know this video is like a lot of goofers. You know, we try to be a little bit goofy on this channel, but there are a lot of bad things in this movie that aren't like just a funny thing. They're genuinely going to have a negative impact on the people, the young people who have seen this movie. I joked about the belly button scene being like the worst sex scene, but really, the worst and most jarring of the sex scenes is the one where Tessa is extremely drunk and her and Hardin have sex anyways. So in the movie, Tessa's extremely drunk and calls Hardin, and Hardin comes to Seattle without her asking. Don't ask why she's in Seattle, it's a whole thing. She lets him into her hotel room and she starts touching him, and he's like, we should not have sex, which is true, and is like, you're gonna hate me in the morning if we do this, which is also true. And she gives him the ultimatum of either, in her words, leaving or fucking her. And he chooses the latter. The consent in this situation is simply non-existent. Consent is something that is freely given, enthusiastic, and clear, and also cannot be given to someone who is like extremely impaired, like by alcohol or some other substance. In this situation, Tessa is super drunk, which negates her ability to give consent. She coerces Hardin into having sex with her by giving him an ultimatum, and neither of them clearly and enthusiastically express, yes, I want to have sex. However, the movie does not spend any time addressing this situation after the fact. In the morning, Tessa wakes up. She's like really angry with herself, but mostly with Hardin, very angry with Hardin. They have an extremely loud argument in the hall. She throws something at him, and then she runs away because she's late for work. In the book, there's like at least a couple sentences where Tessa's like, you're taking advantage of me in a very vulnerable state, and a sentence where Hardin's like, well, you coerced me into having sex with you. You like would not stop persisting. But even with these sentences, it's never like explicitly condemned what happened. It's just the same cyclical repartee that Hardin and Tessa always have that never ever leads to anything except for like arguments and bad sex and them getting back together. The fact that this situation is just so easily brushed off is what really gets me mad. And it's not the only time this happens in like this franchise. In the movie, and especially in the books, there are extremely sensitive issues at hand, like substance abuse or sexual assault. And these are touched upon but never delved into. They usually serve as plot devices to either get Hardin and Tessa back together or break them up again. Also, Hardin and Tessa's relationship is so clearly unhealthy. They constantly fight, mostly verbally, but sometimes physically, like when Tessa slaps him in the movie or Hardin breaks one of the lamps in their apartment. And they have this like weird mutual manipulation going on. While this unhealthy relationship might be like super clear to some of us, it's probably not that clear to the target demographic of the film. This fan fiction was made for young girls who desperately wanted the affection and attention of their celebrity idol. Young girls who were probably so young that they have not had their first sexual experiences yet. There are a lot of studies that have been done on how depictions of sex in media affect young adults in their ideas about sex and safe sex, and I cannot get into all of them because there's quite a few, but I am going to leave the ones that I found in the description box below so you can read them if you'd like. I also encourage you to do your own research on the topic if it's something that you're interested in like I am. So I'm going to very, very briefly touch upon like what some of these studies cover, and you can go ahead and look into them if it's something you're more interested in. Although the studies are not quite comprehensive enough at the point to determine whether the relationship between depictions of sex and young adults' attitudes towards sex are causal or correlational, it has been determined that it can go one of either ways. It can either be depictions of sex cause young adults to be more interested in having sex on their own time, or young adults having sex on their own time has them more interested in sexual media. So it's like this weird like positive feedback loop. I think I'm using that right. Not only do these depictions of media like possibly increase a young adult's interest in having sex, these depictions often influence how young adults perceive safe sex or perceive healthy relationships or consent. A lot of the studies that I found have done content analyses of different forms of media and how sex shows up in them, and a lot of them found that there is a lot of sex in TVs, in movies, and even in like young adult books, but that the negative consequences of unsafe sex and the use of contraceptives and the contraction of STDs and things like that is extremely rarely talked about. Also, I feel that in sexual media, it is often the consent is implied rather than expressed clearly. And I think this romanticizes this idea that you have this like unspoken attraction to this person and that you both feel the same way and you don't need to say anything, but you really do. And these ideas very much influence the people who perceive them and like consume this media. One study found that the groups that are most susceptible to their ideas of sex being influenced by media are females and people who have not yet had their first sexual experience or engaged in sexual intercourse. And the fans of After literally reside in the overlap between these two groups. And another study found that young adult literature, particularly that aimed at young girls, is super ripe with sexual content and also very unripe with the negative consequences of sexual encounters and such like, information like that. So if you take all of these factors into account, you figure out that After is pretty much a recipe for disaster. The negative impact this will have on a very potentially large group of people, given the fact that like millions, hundreds of thousands, millions of people have read these stories, is just enormous. It could have such a negative impact on such a large group of people, and that's horrible to think about. I know that got like a little bit serious. We try to balance the goofers, serious stuff, because I think it's very important to recognize the actual real life impact this piece of media will have on people, because we can laugh about it and there's people like me who read it as a joke and knew it was bad, but there are so many people who don't know it's bad and support it genuinely and think it's so good. With that aside, I was thinking to myself when reading and watching this, I was like, okay, I definitely could have written this, and I definitely could have written a better version of this. So that's exactly what I set out to do. Enjoy my little take on Hardin and Tessa's relationship in Alewags' version of After. Can't you go stand and look moody somewhere else?
Who put you on this planet? Ugh.
That's a quote from SpongeBob.
Yeah, I read. I'm not your typical bad boy. I'm also British, if you didn't notice.
Yeah, you're hot, but you're also literate. I think I want to kiss you.
You're so innocent. It's so dirty. You're like a naive child, but you've got such huge knockers.
I'm gonna ignore the fact that you said naive child and huge knockers in the same sentence, and that's super weird because I think you're super sexy. I'm also gonna ignore the fact that I don't know the difference between actual attraction and being horny just because my boyfriend never touches me, so.
Boyfriend? Boy? You've seen another man in your 19 years of living life? I can't
believe you're cheating on me. Actually, I'm cheating on him, but that's just a technicality. I'm leaving him for you anyways.
Why would you do that? We aren't even dating.
But you said I was cheating on you.
It was a metaphor to Sandra. I read books. Don't you know that? Besides, I would never date a virgin like you.
But in the last 3 minutes, you took my virginity in a dirty lake.
Then I would never date a slut like you.
You fucked every woman in the state of Washington.
Maybe, but the only one I ever wanted to fuck was you.
What are you doing? What do you mean?
I mean, what are you doing?
Oh, it's, Kabadan?
Kaba what?
I mean, I thought you would do it, but, you didn't, so I... Anyways, do you really mean that I'm the only one you wanted to... Maybe we could try again. Just start over.
I thought you were tired of me hurting you. I thought that we weren't good for each other.
We aren't. But the heart wants what it wants.
My heart feels the same way.
Harry, I mean Harden.
YN, I mean Tessa.
In conclusion, I think this movie is bad. It's just so bad. And I hate to like insult artists or insult artists who are like involved secondarily in reproducing a piece of work, because I feel like I'm being unfair to them and projecting my dislike of like, you know, the work onto them. But this is different. The After franchise is not only like poorly written and poorly put together, it's genuinely harmful. And everyone involved in the making of this film is perpetuating this super unhealthy idea of what a relationship is and what sex is. That's from everyone from the people who approved the production of this film, who were definitely just taking advantage of the fact that these young fans are going to be like giving them all of their money when this film comes out. And the actors who play like the lead characters. And especially Anna Todd, the one who wrote this whole thing. Anna Todd simply should not have written After, at least not at all in the way she did. To romanticize an emotionally abusive relationship, especially one involving young people and aimed at young people, is disgusting. It's not okay at all. And to make a real life human being like Harry Styles like look super bad in this fanfiction, it makes it even worse somehow. I wish there was something nice I could say about Anna Todd because I feel like I'm being a bitch, but the writing was of poor quality. She clearly did not do any research when like writing it. I think she even admitted that she would just sit down and kind of shit out the chapters, so that's evident. She was writing a fanfiction about 17-year-old Harry Styles when she was 24 years old. Fanfiction that was extremely sexual, and this extremely sexual fanfiction depicted an extremely unhealthy relationship. There are just no redeeming qualities about After, so I guess I'll just continue to be a bitch. I think that's it for today's video. I hope you got an idea of what After We Collided was like, so you don't have to watch it. And if you do watch it, please pirate it so you're not giving Wattpad Studios or Anna Todd or any of these people your money because they don't deserve it. And I already gave them $5, and you shouldn't do that like I did. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm sorry that I haven't uploaded in so long. It's kind of hard to film at school, but they have a really cool filming studio. This is not a wall, this is a screen, which is crazy. And then also look, there's a green screen and there's like a whole bunch of other things in the room. I think that I might have fucked up the camera, but you know what? It's totally okay, and we've done it. This is a thing. This is a video, and I'm putting it up at some point. And I have another video that I filmed in August that I have not put up, but I will be putting up at some point. Part of my Dandelion series. Watch my first Dandelion video if you haven't and you like dating sims like I do. I think I should probably go before I ramble on too long because this video, I'm sure, is extremely long already. Thank you guys for watching. Share, like, comment, subscribe maybe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!